Well, let's return to the worsening situation with the floods in New South Wales and Queensland. Joining me now is Minister for Emergency Management, Bridget McKenzie. Bridget McKenzie, what do you make of the situation? Let's start with Lismore. Quite shocking scenes there of people on roofs trying to escape. We had an interview before with a lady called Michelle Taylor. They feel they've lost everything. We've got the military going in. What can they do in terms of airlifting some of these people out, and how many people are we talking about?
Yeah, Andrew, you're dead right. Like, this remains a really serious and life-threatening event. In Lismore today, we've seen over 500 rescues occur, and I've been speaking to the State Minister and obviously my own Director General of Emergency Management Australia, Joe ffone, around what support we can give as a federal government. And the one focus of our government today is actually getting those rescues completed and getting people to safety. As we know, the river still hasn't peaked yet. It's at 13.75 metres. They're expecting it to peak at about 14.2, which will be the highest ever, and it's left over 5,000 households being asked to evacuate earlier this morning. So great work by volunteers, and the New South Wales SES has been working overtime, drawing from volunteers around the country to actually assist them in this task. But you're right, we have stood up the ADF in response to a request from New South Wales, and I can let you know we've got 2 Taipan helicopters who are in the operation area as we speak, with a third due to arrive later on today. And we've been able to deploy in excess of 200 ADF personnel on the ground in Lismore to help that local community with this immediate response phase.
And turning to Queensland, is this worse than the 2011 floods, or worse in some areas but not ones affected back then? What's your read of what's occurring there?
Well, I think it's still too soon to tell, Andrew. We know the Brisbane River has started to recede. It's going to be receding a lot more slowly than usual because we're so backed up right throughout the system. The weather pattern that we've seen over the weekend and continuing into this week has been quite unusual. Instead of moving, it's sat there and poured rain onto already saturated catchments. Towns like Gympie are cut into 3, and we've seen a raft of different responses depending on the individual area. That's why as a federal government we've been able to support local communities. We've 17 local government areas in Queensland. You'll be able to access individual support in terms of the disaster recovery payment and the disaster recovery allowance. If you've been cut off or unable to get to work, we've got that financial support available to you, and we're supporting those councils with money to help them clean up and fix those public assets. And, this afternoon I'm able to announce that there are 9 local government areas that we're providing the same support to in New South Wales. And if you don't mind, I'll just read these out.
Sure, go for it.
This is news. Yeah, thank you. So it's Lismore, absolutely, Ballinger, Byron, Richmond Valley, the Tweed, Clarence Valley, Coffs Harbour and Kyogle, all of those local government areas who are right now experiencing these severe impacts. If you have been affected by these floods, we know as a federal government that you may need financial assistance right away to help you with accommodation costs that you may have incurred as a result of having to evacuate, loss of food and the like. So this is around individual payments of $1,000 per person and $400 per child, and the disaster recovery allowance, if you've been cut off from work or unable to get to work because work's cut off from you because of the flood, you'll be able to access this support for 13 weeks. Now that you're able to apply in those 9 government areas in New South Wales from tomorrow. So we stand ready here in this immediate response phase, working with local governments and state governments. But we know this recovery is going to take a long time, and we'll be there every step of the way, adjusting our response as required.
Now, Minister, in the last couple of hours, NCOS has come out with other social service organisations asking for those payments you just referred to be increased from $1,000 per adult to $3,000 per adult and $1,000 per child. Is that anything your government would consider?
Well, Andrew, we've got a raft of supports available to individuals and communities as we make our way through these natural disasters. And these are arrangements that have been in place for a long time and are fit for purpose. So in the immediate response phase, we deem these payments to be adequate and quickly available and non-means tested. Then obviously as we move through the next few phases, depending on what state governments need, sometimes they request for primary producer support, small business support, and we partner with state governments to actually deliver those much needed funds when they're needed in that recovery phase. So we won't be stopping supporting Australians doing it tough, and I look forward to as many Australians as are affected enjoying the support of our federal government financial support, but also getting those boots on the ground is all important, making sure people stay safe. Can I just also, Andrew, I've been asked to make sure to your viewers that when you receive those emergency service notifications, please take heed of them. If you're asked to evacuate, please do so safely and quickly so that you can keep yourself and your families safe.
Minister, just briefly and finally, what is there? We heard from someone before saying the worst flood they've ever seen, Lismore, worst floods for 70 years. Is there anything you attribute this to? Is it La Nina? Is it climate change? Is it just a freak weather event? What do you think causes this?
Yeah, look, it was interesting to have a briefing yesterday afternoon with the Prime Minister and Premier Palaszczuk, the BOM and the commissioners, and that was the sort of questions we were asking in that briefing. Now, this was a very unusual weather pattern. Usually when we have these types of rain events, they move through the coastline and away, whereas this seemed to sit and hover and pour down rain, and in Lismore's case, 600 mil overnight, on ground that was already saturated from the events over summer. So there was a few different reasons why this particular event has become so catastrophic. And I think, you know, my job as Emergency Management Minister is to be in constant contact with my state colleagues and make sure that Australians are supported through this. Are we going to see more intense weather events due to climate change? Yes, we are. And we're preparing for that. We do live in a country where this won't be the last time we deal with these types of events, and whether it's bushfires or floods, droughts, cyclonic activity, we have to have a disaster readiness system where all avenues of governments are integrated and joined up so that Australians can get the response they need when they need it.